Hey everyone, and welcome back to Crimson Tide Today. I'm Zack Aitken, and I'm glad you've decided to spend part of your day talking Alabama football with me. If you're a fan of the channel and want to support what we're building here, take a second to like the video, subscribe if you're new, and share it with another member of the Crimson Tide family. Be sure to jump into the comments as well. I always enjoy reading your thoughts and hearing your take on the latest Alabama news and storylines as well. For even more coverage, including recruiting updates, breaking news, and daily Alabama football discussion, follow me on X and Instagram at ZAkin7. We've got plenty to cover today, so let's lock in and dive right into some Alabama football. So, one thing I've been wondering lately is this. Why does it feel like so much of the national media is determined to convince everyone that Kalen DeBoer is failing at Alabama? Over the last several days, we've heard criticism from some of the biggest names in sports media. Stephen A. Smith questioned whether DeBoer was the right guy to follow Nick Saban and has openly expressed skepticism about his ability to maintain Alabama's championship standard. Paul Feinbaum has repeatedly scrutinized DeBoer's performance and often discussed whether Alabama made the right hire. Even Mike Greenberg has raised concerns about whether DeBoer can handle the pressure and expectations that come with one of the most demanding jobs in college football. Now, criticism, it does come with the territory when you are the head coach of Alabama. I mean, I'm not naive to that. Nobody is asking for DeBoer to be immune from criticism. But what I don't understand is why so many people seem determined to ignore what happened on the field in 2025. Let's look at a vacuum and just take a look at the facts. Alabama, they went 10-2 in the regular season. The Crimson Tide, they went on the road and beat Georgia in Athens. Think about that for a second. Alabama walked into one of the toughest environments in college football and ended Georgia's 33-game home winning streak. That's not something the average football team can do because if it was so easy, why was the streak 33 games? That's not something coaches on the hot seat accomplish. And it wasn't just the Georgia win. Alabama earned a spot in the SEC championship game. In a conference that's deep and more competitive than ever, DeBoer's team played its way into Atlanta in only his second season in Tuscaloosa. And then came the college football playoff. Alabama made history by becoming the first team to win a road game in the college football playoff. That's not an opinion, that's a fact. When the playoff format expanded, Alabama was the first program to accomplish this, and no other team has done it before. How did the season end? Did Alabama get embarrassed by a mediocre team? No. The Crimson Tide, it ended its season against the eventual national champion. So in a vacuum, if I told you in the preseason last year that Kalen DeBoer would accomplish all of this, you would have sat back and said, my God, this team is college football playoff bound in 2026. They may be even a dark horse contender for the national championship. No, we've got members of the media saying he should be out. He's a scrub. They're acting like Nick Saban would be a better coach on crutches compared to this guy who did all of this. So when I hear people talking about DeBoer like he's already proven he can't do the job, I have to ask, compared to what? Compared to Nick Saban? Well, I mean, that's the problem. Nobody's going to look good in comparison to the greatest college football coach of all time. The standard at Alabama, it is championships. Everybody understands that. DeBoer understands that better than anyone. I mean, he's the head man for crying out loud. But there seems to be a difference between saying Alabama should be competing for championships and pretending that a 10-2 regular season, SEC championship game appearance, college football playoff victory, and a season that ended to the eventual national champions, it somehow is qualifying as a failure. That is not failure, guys. That is a very good football season. Now, does Alabama still have things to prove? Absolutely. Every program in America does. DeBoer, he would be the first person to tell you that. But we're not going to be, if we're going to evaluate the guy fairly, let's evaluate him on what happened instead of what people expect to happen. Because from where I'm sitting, it feels like some members of the national media have already made up their minds about Kalen DeBoer. And no matter what Alabama accomplishes, they're going to have their reasons to doubt him. But what do you guys think? Has the criticism of Kalen DeBoer gone too far, or is it justified? Let me know down in the comments below. I would love to hear y'all's thoughts on this discussion. Moving on, I want to talk about a particular media member, one of the biggest Alabama debates coming out of SEC media days. It wasn't about the quarterback competition. It wasn't about recruiting. It wasn't even about the schedule. It was a comment Kalen DeBoer made regarding national championships. During the SEC media days, DeBoer was asked about his tenure at Alabama would ultimately be defined by winning a national championship. His answer surprised some people. I was not one of the people that was surprised, by the way. DeBoer, he essentially said that his time at Alabama, it wouldn't be defined solely by whether he wins a national title. He talked about building a program, developing players, and focusing on the work that goes into sustaining success. Then here came the reaction. ESPN's Stephen A. Smith, he pushed back hard. Smith, he argued that Nick Saban would never have said something like that, which is laughable when I saw that comment. Stephen A. Smith, his position was simple. When you're the head coach at Alabama, national championships are the standard. If you're talking about anything else, you're lowering expectations. And on the surface, I can understand why that sounds compelling. This is Alabama. We're talking about a program with 18 national championships. They've had the greatest dynasty in modern college football, and they had the second greatest dynasty of all time too, with the Coach Bryant era in the 1960s and into the 70s. So nobody is arguing that championships don't matter in Tuscaloosa, but this is where Stephen A. Smith, he completely misses the point. Nick Saban absolutely expected to win championships, but what he didn't do was make championships the daily focus of his football program. Saban, he spent years teaching the exact opposite. Every Alabama fan has heard about the process. The process wasn't about, obsessing over championships. The process was focusing on what was directly in front of you. It was about winning the next drill, the next rep, the next practice, the next meeting, and eventually the next game. One of the most famous phrases about the process was treat every play like it has a life of its own. Saban believed that when players became focused on outcomes, they often lost focus on the things that you did to create those outcomes. So think about how many times Saban said, focus on the process, not the results. That wasn't just a catchy slogan. That was the foundation of his Alabama dynasty. And it's not just Saban saying that. Former Alabama quarterback Greg McElroy, he recently pointed out during his entire playing time under Nick Saban, he doesn't remember national championships ever being discussed as the team's goal. Instead, the focus was always about the daily standard, preparation, accountability, and execution. The championships were viewed as a byproduct of doing everything else correctly. So that's a very important distinction. Did Nick Saban want to win national championships? Of course he did. Who doesn't want to win national championships? I mean, you play to win the game, right? But did he define every conversation, every practice, and every team meeting around winning national championships? No. He defined them around the process of becoming the best team possible. And honestly, that's exactly what we heard from Kalen DeBoer. I didn't hear a coach saying championships don't matter. I didn't hear a coach lowering the standard of the program. I heard a coach saying that his legacy won't be determined by a single trophy. It's going to be determined by a culture he builds, the players he develops, the consistency of the program, and the work that happens every day behind the scenes. Ironically, it sounds a lot like more Nick Saban than Stephen A. Smith is willing to admit. But it doesn't surprise me. Smith, he's probably only been watching Alabama football since 2010. Because if Saban taught us anything, it's that chasing championships directly is often the wrong approach. You chase excellence. You chase preparation. You chase improvement. And if you do all of those things consistently enough, the championships, they're usually going to take care of themselves. That's exactly how Alabama won 6 national titles under Nick Saban. So I understand why DeBoer's comments generated headlines, and I think some people are reacting to what they thought he said rather than what he actually said. The standard at Alabama, it hasn't changed. The expectation to compete for championships, that's not changed. But the path to reaching those championships, it's always been the same. Trust the process. And if the philosophy was good enough for Nick Saban, I'm not sure why it's suddenly being criticized when Kalen DeBoer said something very similar. Moving on to our next segment, this was interesting because it kind of reminded me of how last season's beginning started. Because one thing that Alabama fans have learned over the years is that giving the Crimson Tide extra motivation, it's usually not the smartest idea. And that's exactly what may have happened this week with Alabama's season opening opponent, East Carolina. A social media post from East Carolina defensive back Darian Horsley, it started making rounds online, and it's already caught the attention of several Alabama players. In the now deleted Instagram post, Horsley was seen pointing at Alabama's logo on East Carolina's schedule graphic, and it included some not so subtle emojis in the caption. It didn't take long for Crimson Tide players to notice. Alabama defensive back Red Morgan, he responded with a message that quickly spread across social media. "We will not tolerate no disrespect, brother." Freshman safety Jaira Edwards also chimed in, while several Alabama players joined the conversation. The message was clear. The Tide noticed. Now, if we're going to be honest, this is college football, and we are talking about college kids, so trash talk isn't new. Players, they've been finding a way to motivate themselves and their teammates for decades, but what makes this situation interesting is that Alabama they don't exactly need one additional motivation heading into week one. The Crimson Tide, they're opening the season in Bryant-Denny Stadium. They're going to be looking to build off the strong year of 2025, and now there's already some bulletin board material circulating through the locker room. What's funny is we've seen this situation before. If you remember last season, Florida State quarterback Tommy Castellanos, he did make headlines with comments directed towards Alabama before the season opener. Alabama players talked about responding to the disrespect, but Florida State ultimately backed it up and, they walked the walk and they talked the talk on the field. I feel like that's why DeBoer and his staff will likely make sure their team focuses on preparation rather than social media. And this is where this story gets interesting. East Carolina, it's not just some team Alabama can simply overlook. The Pirates last season, they ended their season with 9 wins and a bowl victory. And DeBoer himself, he recently pointed out that East Carolina has been a very successful program and they've added coaches with strong track records. So, in other words, Alabama, they shouldn't be treating this game like a guaranteed win. But still, if you're an East Carolina player, why would you give Alabama any extra fuel? Why create a headline 6 weeks before kickoff? Because now every Alabama fan has seen it, every Alabama player has seen it, and you could bet the coaching staff is aware of it too. The reality is that none of this will matter if Alabama doesn't execute on September 5th. Social media posts don't win football games, comment sections don't win football games. The only thing that matters is what happens between the lines. But if Alabama comes out flying in the season opener, don't be surprised if some fans point back to this Instagram post and say it provided just a little bit of extra motivation for the guys. The good news is that college football season is almost here, and we've got another storyline to watch heading into week 1. So, wrapping up today's show, we're going to do another player preview. And today's player preview is on one of the more intriguing newcomers in Alabama's receiver room. It's junior college transfer Tyler Henderson. When Alabama landed Henderson out of Mississippi Gulf Community College, it didn't make many headlines as some of the 5-star recruits or the transfer portal additions. But don't be surprised if Henderson ends up becoming a valuable piece of the Crimson Tide offense this season. Let's start with his journey to Tuscaloosa. Henderson, he's originally from Vicksburg, Mississippi, where he started at Vicksburg High School. As a senior, he hauled in 32 catches for 852 yards and had 12 touchdowns while earning all-star recognition. After high school, he took the junior college route and enrolled at Mississippi Gulf Coast Community College, and that's where really his stock started to take off. During his 2 seasons at Mississippi Gulf Coast, Henderson developed into one of the top junior college wide receivers in all of the country. As a sophomore, he posted just over 1,200 receiving yards and had 12 touchdowns on 67 catches, while leading his team in receiving production. By the time Alabama came calling, Henderson was considered one of the nation's top junior college receivers and one of the highest rated junior college pass catchers in the 2026 class. So let's look at his physical traits and see what we're working with Henderson. Henderson, he is listed at 6'1 and 173 pounds, and compared to some of Alabama's bigger receivers of the past, he's not going to be an overpowering vertical specimen. He's a lean athlete with room to add strength to his frame, but what he lacks in bulk, he's going to make up for with quickness, body control, and the ability to make plays down the field. As for his style of play, Henderson brings something Alabama's offense could always use, a reliable target who can move the chains down the field. He's not just a straight line speed guy. Henderson, he's shown strong ball skills, an ability to win contested catches, and a knack for finding openings in coverage. Several evaluations of his game point to his toughness and his ability to make difficult catches in traffic. He's a type of receiver who can turn a 3rd and 7 into a first down and keeps drives alive. Let's look at some of his highlights from 2025. There he is at the top of his screen. This is just pretty much going to be a simple go route, showing that 4.3 speed he has. Quarterback puts it on his chest, and we got a touchdown for Henderson. Hits the Crimson Crane at the end. I like that. Here he is at the bottom of the screen. Just going to be a simple slant route. Going to come back and make a catch. Breaks a couple tackles. And he's going to house this one. Great speed. Up top of the screen again. Working on one-on-one coverage. Easily blows by the defensive back. Touchdown, Tyler. This will be the last one we show. Bottom of the screen again. Little stop route 10 yards out. Makes a man miss. Makes another guy miss. And takes it to the house. So as we saw, Henderson, he can definitely get up and go when he has the ball in his hands. And what's also interesting is where he's going to fit into Alabama's offense. The Crimson Tide, they already have star power at the receiver. You got guys like Ryan Coleman-Williams and Lazier Brooks drawing attention from defenses. And that could create some opportunities for Henderson to carve out a role as a dependable complementary target. Whether he's lining up outside or working from the slot, his experience and production at the JUCO level, it should give him a chance to compete for meaningful snaps right away when the season starts. So, I mean, the transition from JUCO to Alabama, it's never going to be easy. The speed of the game is completely different, the competition is different, and the expectations are totally different as well. But Henderson, he's already proven he's willing to take the long road. He wasn't a blue chip 5-star recruit who arrived with a ton of hype. He worked his way from Vicksburg High School to Mississippi Gulf Coast Community College and eventually earned an opportunity with one of the biggest programs in college football. If he can carry that same work ethic into fall camp, don't be surprised that Tyler Henderson becomes one of the most important under the radar additions this season. So, guys, thank you for tuning in to Crimson Tide today. I really appreciate y'all's continued support of the show. Make sure to drop some topics that you want covered in a future episode in the comments. And until next time, roll Tide.